Hello everyone, it is Gen Z Stacking and welcome on back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking into my net worth and my job history so you can know a little bit more about me, where I come from, and how it all makes sense. So first off, I'm 23 years old. I am a Gen Zer, of course, hence the name, and I am saving, stacking, and investing as a pretty regular individual when it comes to the jobs I've worked, maybe not in the hustle though. I'm certainly an outlier in my group of people that I know in the amount that I've been saving and how ambitious I am about this. I've always wanted to make a YouTube channel like this, but didn't want to expose myself in my daily life. So I was brought up in a middle class household, I would say, parents through divorce and trying to keep the house and this and that. There was a lot of tension on finances and such. So it always was embedded to me to learn about finances in some capacity. I knew that I had to do something about it, or else what? You're just gonna be broke forever or go through what my parents went through with it. Not saying they're bad off or anything, it's just like you kind of fumbled the ball. Maybe if we thought about things a little harder, we could have, grown to be something. So that's kind of what started the fire in me, and fire, no pun intended. So I started tracking my net worth in July of 2023. So only 3 years kind of have been passed, more like 2.5, because I do it every July 1st and every January 1st. That's that. I work 7 days a week unless the construction has a day off or something really comes up that I would like to do and I give up a shift at my restaurant. So, yeah, 7 days a week, about 70 hours a week, all being paid hourly and tips. So that's how I'm able to save all my money. I do live at home. I do pay a small amount in rent every month. But this is what strategy is for when you're young, and if you can stay at home or live with the roommate and decrease the costs and increase the amount of hours that you're working, increase your value, you will be making a shit ton of money. I think we should talk about the jobs first because this is something that no one really looks at. Everyone talks about their previous jobs, but they don't actually break it down by their age, how much they were making, because it's kind of unfair when you're looking at someone's net worth. You're like, how the hell did that person get there? So my net worth is actually pretty crazy in how it has been built up. So I started at age 13, about maybe even earlier. I don't exactly remember. I know I was shoveling before this, maybe at like 10 to 12 for a few bucks, but I would be landscaping, mainly doing, lawn services at $30 to $40 a lawn. I had 4 of those at the max time. So about once a week or two, I would get 2 lawns. So I'd make about 80 bucks a week. All this money was going into an endeavor that I was doing musically. So I wasn't really saving this money. I was saving it for equipment and this and that. At 14, I did start my first official job at a grocery store as a bagger at $10 an hour. This never increased, maybe by 25 cents or something, because I was there for 2 years, and 15 an hour on Sunday. I only worked Saturday and Sunday, about 8 hours. So I'd barely been making over 100 bucks a week because of the 15-hour on Sunday. They would give slight bonuses of like 20 bucks every now and then, but that was really difficult to save up for a car. So at 16, I became a lube tech slash janitor for a car place at $8 an hour. So I took a massive pay cut, and I was working every night after school. So I had only like 3 hours to work from when I got out of school. Would go in and do this for $8 an hour. The drive was like 25 minutes, so I'd almost break even pretty much by the end of the week. I knew that a raise was inevitable, and at the same age of 16, I got a bump up back to $10 an hour, which was a huge help at least in covering gas costs. I was able to get my first car from them for $500 as a very helpful way of me to start working there. So that was basically big blessing number one, is that I was able to get a car for $500. It needed some work, and it was good because I learned on that car and showed that I had some interest in actually being a mechanic and not just changing oil and doing some tires. So that got me to age 17. I got a raise at $12 an hour, another $2 an hour kind of thing. And then at 18, they started transitioning me way more into actually being a full-time mechanic. I was working there full-time. I got a bump up to 15, and then shortly after, around age 19, $17 an hour. And I did ask for the previous raise. So I asked for the raise from 12 to 15 and then from 15 to 17. I asked twice for a raise. And then on the third time, I knew I was going to be leaving if they didn't give me a significant raise because of how things were going. And I was genuinely a full-time mechanic working there all the time. I was there for 3 years. So at 19, I got a $1 raise to $18 an hour. And I was just like, there's no way. I'm not staying here another 2 years just to make 25. You know, when you look at it, $18 an hour at its max, I mean, I was making $650 a week, I think. And I was trying to push overtime. I was there 45 minutes early every day to push the hours and such. So I just knew the time was at an end, and I gave my notice about a month and a half early. I said, let's figure out a date that works well. And at this time, I didn't have that much saved up. I had, my Roth IRA contributions and maybe like $7,000 emergency fund, and I had no plan, zero plan. So this is the first time in my life to where I did something completely out of plan, and it ended up working very well for me. About 2 months later, I was applying to a bunch of different jobs, and a restaurant called me back. It was the only place that called me back, and I started off as a busser. Never been in the restaurant industry before. $5 an hour plus tips. It ended up being about $20 an hour. Are you serious? I'm going from a top position in this one company, working my ass off, to a fuck off kind of business where I'm just the starting off busser and I'm making $20 an hour. That's crazy. So that blew my mind, and I knew servers made more. So after about 6 months, I was so tired of bussing 5 days a week. It was a lot. And I was like, I want to be a server. So they said to be a host first. The host position was worse at $15 an hour plus tips. It was about $16 to $17 an hour. It was a pay step down, which was unfortunate, but I was still, kind of hoping through that I would become a server, and it blew me away what I made as a server. So that was at age 20, from busser, host, and then server. So it was in a year that I became a server at $3.25 an hour plus tips to equal roughly $28 an hour. Sometimes it would be more, sometimes it would be a little less, but I'll, say about $28 an hour. So in 1 year, I went from $18 an hour to $28 an hour. That was life-changing for me. I could finally actually save money. Oh man, it was just so much better. Plus I got a meal every day. I mean, it was nice to work on my cars at cost and not have the hassle, but I didn't have to buy tools anymore. I could just show up to work. That was closer to my house. It was 10 minutes instead of 25. And then at 21, about a year and a half of being there, one of the supervisor positions came up, and I was like, I want to be a supervisor, and they said yes. So I got $23 an hour for supervising, but I didn't supervise all the time. So it was more of a job security thing that put me in there. And then at 22, exactly a year after the supervisor, I got the lead trainer role, which this changed all of my hourly rates at the job plus $2 an hour. So instead, I started making as a server $5.25 an hour. At 22 plus tips, about $30 an hour. This is a huge increase because it was, I think, like $4,000 to $6,000 a year bonus is what this $2 an hour would mean for me if I was working 40 hours a week. And then supervisor, about $25 an hour, so it's a little bit better. when I did those supervisor shifts if I had to. At 22, I did start a side job. So this was a crazy thing for me. I actually went into management for a few months, making $70,000 a year, and it was a longer commute, way more gas money, way more hours for no reason. And I said, screw this. I'm going back to serving because I want 2 jobs. So I'm gonna really be able to kill it. So I picked up a construction job part-time, 3 days a week at $22 an hour. Now this is crazy because that's the starting rate. That's my biggest starting rate. Going from my first starting rate at one company of $10 an hour, then to $8 an hour, then to $5 an hour, $20, up to 22, you know? Moving companies and getting new positions and throwing yourself out there, oh my gosh, this is so powerful. And then at 23, which is my age now, I did get a raise of $2 an hour on the construction. My serving has stayed about the same. I am no genius, but I will say I have been doing this since I was 18 in investing and saving almost all my money as much as possible. There have been mistakes along the road. Let's go through the net worth. So I started this net worth tracker in the second half of 2023. So this would be from July 1st, 2023 till the end of the year. If we look at the total assets, it would be $54,001. My goal that year was $50,000, and I was really trying hard for that. That was a monumental year for me because that was when I was, serving and in my first year and stuff. That was a really difficult year to save up that much money. Before this, I believe I only had a net worth of about 20,000. So getting that 30 grand was just crazy added on to that. You can see the checking account. My rule is I always take $1,000 and that is my base in my checking account. Anything over, I know I'm gonna be spending for the week, gets taken out through those expenditures, and everything else gets invested and saved. So that is my rule. $1,000 is always what's in my checking account, give or take a few bucks. Ally Bank, I opened the account, never really ended up using it. I was going to use to structure some spending because I had a trouble with spending at this point. I really felt guilty and I wanted to take trips, but I never would do it. So I tried opening that account. It never worked out. I never ended up taking trips. CIT Bank Emergency Fund. This is, what I would consider my emergency fund at the moment. I didn't really need this much money, but $6,500 would definitely cover my expenses for 6 months to a year. And then I, started making an attempt to save up for a home, and I had $11,519 in there. But as you'll see later on, this has been kind of got rid of. So Fidelity Brokerage, that is taxable account. This was the first year I was able to contribute to that. Otherwise, it was just opened at $1,000. It was just sitting there, and I was maxing out the Roth IRA. I was saving up in my emergency fund, but I could never really invest in the brokerage and never get that overflow. And this was the first year I put $5,000 in. It was extremely monumental for me. And then the Roth IRA, I was doing this for a few years, and $26,800. So most of my net worth was in that, and my goal for the next 2 years was to decrease the percentage of my net worth from my Roth IRA. I didn't want it to be the majority or half of it, and I wanted my brokerage account to outpace my Roth IRA. So precious metals, I didn't have anything different from gold and silver at this point calculated, so I put in at $1,300. That was mainly from my grandfather. And I did purchase that year. Yep, that was the year I did make the first videos on this channel. So I did buy there. I had a few bucks in cash because in serving I always have some money around, and then in Coinbase I had $41. And that's my net worth at 2023, age 21. So let's go just to the end of 2024. You can see the net worth exploded. My goal was 75,000 and we reached 111,000. And this was pure markets plus me saving over $50,000 because I was making over 70 grand cut away 10 grand in taxes, maybe a little more, and I was just going balls to the wall in 2024. That was my biggest year when it comes to saving and not spending any money. I didn't do anything that year. I mean, I lived so frugally. It was crazy. Like the amount of groceries that I got every week and what I was living off of was it was pure survival. I wanted 100K so bad. And once I realized it was close to being possible, I went balls to the wall with it. You know, when we look, what did I focus on that year? Well, you can see I wanted to outpace the Roth IRA from the brokerage, so I did that. You know, the Roth IRA grew. I put in that $7,000, of course, but it grew so much in that year, which is my first time of seeing gains, really. I don't have the exact percentages calculated out for this video, though. You can see I kind of took the money. I had to buy a car in this period, so my emergency fund and home fund, I just combined into one, and it went down in value because I had to buy the car and fix it up. My checking account was up because I didn't transfer to Fidelity yet. I just wanted it to kind of all look like how it actually was on the day. But you know, I'm sure the next day I decreased it by $2,000, put it into Fidelity. Ally Bank is making interest, but there's still money in there just doing nothing. There's really no point for that account. I did do a re-evaluation on the gold and silver, and I did not purchase any during this period, and it went up about $500. Cash, I had nothing. I deposited it all into the bank. And then Coinbase, I think I threw $100 in that year. I crushed that goal by $36,000. Now, that goal was a little short, but I was trying. I was in a little bit of a mental crisis with money. And I was like, I want to spend some money. But as the year went on, I saw that 100K was possible, and we absolutely obliterated it. So 2025, I felt a little discouraged the first half of the year because that's when I went into management. I wasn't able to save much money, and I've really felt behind until I came back to serving. And as you see in the second half, this is the most recent of the net worth statements. I just did this last month. I had $5,400 in the checking because I just got a bunch of money in from my jobs. Ally Bank went up just by interest. My emergency fund, I did fund back $7,000, or actually way more than that. Sorry, $12,000 throughout the year. About that was the first goal, was get my emergency fund up to 25K, and then I took from the construction all my money in the first 3 months there that I worked there, and it went into the emergency fund. So that really helped increase that by a lot. Now, a little excessive, very much, but I was looking at properties and thinking of making something happen. We go down to the brokerage. We put in a shit ton of money. Not that crazy amount, but you know, the market did go up a little bit, and I was able to put in probably like 20 grand there at $89,000. Now really outpacing the Roth IRA, which was just about 60 grand. I did finally make a difference in my gold and silver. I did get a couple of gold pieces, and that brought that value up, and I saw the increase in silver so much that I was like, what the hell is going on in the silver gold market? This is the first time I really realized that there was an issue in how crazy the markets were, because I only had a few ounces and it went up so much in value. Cash, Coinbase, I put in an extra $500 or whatever, just to slightly diversify the portfolio, leaving a net worth of $186,000. And this is funny, on the credit card, it's negative $13 because I had a credit. So I did count that, I guess. So that is interesting. I mean, my goal that year was $140,000. Made a lot more sense. I was like, okay, I can get to, you know, that amount, but because in the first, few months of the year, I was working in management and making less money, it didn't seem possible at first. And again, as the year went on, it just completely snowballed out of the question. So now I looked at this and I'm like, all right, I have undershot myself a lot. And I think I need to increase my goal. And my goal for this year really is 200K. But on paper, I'm putting it as 230 because that's going to be a challenge for me. Because in past years, I feel like, I didn't challenge myself enough with that number. It's 230. How the hell are we going to get there, man? I don't know, because the markets are kind of crazy right now. And, silver and gold, and with, just so much tension in the market. Who knows? All I know is if we go down 15% this year, I'm still going to try and increase my net worth, even if it doesn't reach that 230K. I'm 23 years old again. I can't believe it. I've changed my life in almost no regard for how much money I've had. I still keep $1,000 in my checking account. Anything over gets invested unless it's expenses. I do have a few little side hobbies that I have been spending a little more than I want to on. Been doing no trips. I take an occasional like 1-day trip somewhere. I feel like I'm a regular person, and if people are jealous of me, I mean, it's pretty freaking simple. I mean, all I did was work as many hours as I could, pick up every single table I could in the restaurant industry, switch jobs when I knew I was undervalued, invested in very safe things. I've done no crazy like gambling situation on stocks or on day trading. I've been very conservative. I'm ultra conservative. I mean, that's criticism I get from the people that kind of know my situation, is that I'm not taking the risk to start a business or to buy a home or something like that. And I'm okay with it because this is working for me so far. And I mean, here we are on the channel. I'm just doing this as kind of a introduction to myself and my background, without giving too much away, hopefully. And hopefully you all kind of can maybe think of this, and a young person really should be shown what can be done in the first 5 years. I've been doing this for 5 years. I went from a net worth, which was about 10 grand actually it was less when I started, probably like 5 grand when I started, to over $180,000 within 5 years, working just, maybe 5, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. But it's so possible, especially if you live in an area where there's job opportunity. That's the luckiest thing I have, is I live in not necessarily a big city, but in a good metro area to where I'm able to get jobs. I've done like some door dashing and stuff like that just in bad times, starting at 13, making money. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, let's lock in. I've been in this game, I guess, 10 years now, working, which, I'm very satisfied. It's nice to go to work. I have a smile on my face most of the time, unless I'm tired or something. But, people complain about it so much in this economy. You can't do whatever. But, dude, like, just lock in and do it. What are you waiting for? Here I am, 23, nothing really special except for the fact I live in a good metro area and I live at home. Again, I do pay a little bit of rent, but it's nothing crazy. I do understand that's very lucky, but I also know that I'm taking that advantage. I'm not wasting it like everyone else does, it seems. Everyone else in their 20s, they decide to go and freaking party and drink. I know this firsthand. All of my coworkers, for the most part, did this shit. I'm one of the younger people there for sure, but I'm also probably way ahead of them in their finances, and they're freaking 30 and 40. How is that possible? Oh, wait, don't have a kid when you're freaking 18. Save up your money when you're in your parents' house. Not to move out necessarily right away. Save it for like 3 or 4 years so you can get out and be self-reliant. It's crazy, Oh, man. I've had help along the way for sure. That first car was very helpful. And, my mom helped with some insurance issues in the first year or two. But man, like, if you have my situation of luck in being like, I don't know, a healthy guy that lives at home in a good metro area should take every single piece of advantage. There's no excuse for you not to be able to win. Like, I know I'm gonna win. And that's the mindset I've had ever since I was freaking 10 years old. I didn't know how the hell I was gonna do it, but I wanted to be a millionaire. And, just a little bit of, I don't know, growth in this area has really increased my confidence. And I don't necessarily, boast about this in public. I mean, that's why I have all this on. But here I am, ranting a lot. We'll see you in another video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think about the different switch up from going from the desk to more of a face-to-face thing. You just let me know in those comments below. Thank you all. Stay stacking, stay safe, and have a great day.